Hello guys, welcome to Carlos Pimentel Tech channel. Today we are going to introduce the concept of object-oriented programming with a Visual Basic for application. Just a quick introduction, we will discuss a little bit about the matter of is VBA really an object-oriented programming? Well, for that question to be answered, you should know that normally it's considered that object-oriented programming has four main foundations, which are abstraction, encapsulation, polymorphism, and inheritance. So VBA can support the three first foundations, which is abstraction. This means abstracting logic and concepts that can be done using or defined with objects and class modules. So you can do that with VBA. And when we refer to encapsulation, we are talking about the properties you can use in a class, like making a class private or public or static, like in Java or other programming languages. So the polymorphism implements abstract interfaces, so you can implement a method of a class into another. So this is what the polymorphism lets you do. And about the inheritance, it's true that VBA does not let you derive a type from another, so this is not supported. However, VBA supports composition and is very often preferable to inheritance, which has a number of KVs. So VBA will let you compose objects to your preference of content. So yeah, it is possible to use object-oriented programming concepts in VBA. So now an object is similar to a variable. Very similar. The differences are mostly that variables are mostly, let's say, system defined, and the objects are user defined. And then an object will not necessarily have to be declared. It will have methods and will be created on a class. Meanwhile, a variable is going to be something you will define, of course, the name, but it will have very dependent of the system or the system itself. So, talking about the variables, you have types of variables in VBA which are not much different from other programming languages. You have first byte here, numerical, and the details. The details are actually the value that this variable byte can take, and if you take a notice here, byte will be the type numerical and will be the value of numbers between 0 and 255, which also is the amount of memory this variable or data type, if you prefer, will take in your program. So you have byte, integer, long, currency, single, double. All of these are numerical variables with different values. For instance, integer will be a whole number between minus 32,000 and 32,000. So from minus to positive side. Long, all of this. You can find this data on the internet as well, of course. This is just the introduction before we start creating our variables and working with objects in Visual Basic for application with Excel. So as you can see, all of this String is also always used string for text. This is almost universal, and you have some symbols here. You can pay attention to that. And the boolean will be type boolean as well, and it only takes two values, either true or false, according to what you want your variable to do. And this is very useful when you're talking or using objects in any programming language, as well as the other ones, of course. So this one you have object as well, and Microsoft object. Then you have the variant. It can be any type, any kind of data. So in VBA, you can declare a variable before you start to use it. It's not really mandatory, but it's a good practice, so you can avoid any mistakes, or it makes it easier for you to debug anytime you have a situation with a variable. So for you to declare the variable, your first step is to write dim in VBA. This is to declare the variable. Then you have to define the variable name. The name, make sure you don't use any space because it's not allowed to have space. As this expression declares the variable type, and integer should be variable type, as we saw before. So in VBA, our integer variable should be declared as dim space my underscore var as integer. If you do that, you just declare the variable. Okay, this is just an introduction. We are going to start seeing some examples and working with the properties and all the possibilities you can use in VBA. Thank you for watching. Please welcome and subscribe.